Yeah, but I found a new way to do videos, by the way. You're live. I'm streaming you live on YouTube right now.
Well, is it on tape or I mean recorded?
Yeah, it records automatically without me having to do anything else.
I'm talking about the meeting, not us.
No, the meeting's on tape. Yeah, we'll have to watch it later. Yeah, yeah, we'll go back to it later. Now they're talking some garbage here. I don't know. The future of transit or something, or some little presentation. Okay, we'll have to go back to it later. But since I got you here,
But other than that, the
it passed, obviously. We'll turn that guy down. We'll have to go back to this later, Neil, but it was
Well,
published.
it's a good shot of your ceiling there.
Oh, is it? Well, I can see you. Oh, wait, okay. Okay, wait.
And barely the top of your head.
Oh, well, how's that?
That's better.
All right, I had a picture of you, and this is let me see here. It was a live broadcast. I'm just chatting with you on this, on my new genius invention of YouTube Live, so I don't have to post it from the camera later. There's really no point in watching. You want to watch this circus here? I mean, we can if you want.
I'm here.
Okay, so you want to watch the circus? All right.
I always enjoy the circus. By the way, have you heard back from you know who?
Who? Who's who?
You know who?
Oh, the board member?
Yeah.
No.
Me either.
Yeah, that was a one-time deal. You know, they don't want to get too close to the anarchist movement. You know.
Well, my gut feeling is that her political career is going to stall for a while.
Yeah. Yes. Well, that's probably why she doesn't want to get too close to any people like us, because that's the kiss of death with those people. You know, because we're staunch critics of the status quo, and the Trimet world is a cult. And if you're not in with the cult, you're not in, and that's connected to all the other governmental entities in Portland. That's called democratic monopoly of public sectors for decades has created this cult. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like there's going to be any way out of this, because with the Trump phenomenon, it's pushed the people that are in blue states, such as mine in here in Massachusetts, Oregon, California. That's where they talk about there's no blue wave in the nation. Well, there is in the blue states. You know, Trump has created a blue wave in the blue states for the most part. So we're going to continue to have this version of government. I don't know.
Yeah. By the way, I don't know whether you were following. Amanda Fritz sort of objected for city council member on the alignment.
Oh yeah, I remember hearing that. Yeah.
And just recently, and then shortly after, within 10 days, guess what?
What she recanted.
Well, I don't know whether she recanted. I haven't seen it.
Oh, they made some adjustments.
The city council essentially approved it.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, they have these these little charades of one or two people try to speak up for the public. This is the charade of the whole system. It's like, okay, they're going to give a tax break to the richest people in the country. So we have the charade of the Democrats voting 49 against, and the Republicans voting 51 for. So the tax cut passes, but we played this charade of pretending that some of us care, and I'm convinced that's 100% charade. All of this stuff is done to mollify the huddled masses, and I do understand, after many years of studying oligarchies and power structures, that in the mind of these technocrats and legislators and all of these people that have been elevated into higher office, their whole mentality is, how do we keep the public control? We have to control They don't have any interest in involving us, and they don't have any interest in informing us. They just have to find methods to control us. And I know that's true. I know that I'm absolutely right about that theory. There's no question in my mind that there is no respect for the masses at all when it comes to the technocratic elite classes who are controlling our lives. And that's every governmental sector, every service that's governmental funded. And you have the people that are in that cult, you know, the McFarlanes, the Kelseys, all of their henchmen, the board, the governor, all of their henchmen, and then there's the masses, which you know,
I mean, with the re-election of Ms. Brown, the collusion between the state legislature, the Trimet board, Metro.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
going to be pretty. You're going to see a push like you can't believe for this 2020 bond.
Oh, of course, yeah. No, they're going to get that money, and my guess is that they'll get the voters to approve it. They'll be able to fool the voters this time. You know, when they take all of their resources and pool them together, and don't forget they have the mainstream media to pump their propaganda. Just like the mainstream media really put Trump in office because he's a product of the media. The people in Portland, all these governmental agencies, all have millions and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to play with. There's no doubt that they will do everything they can to get the people to turn it over. And I also question the validity of the elections. I even wonder if the elections are just a complete fraud to pretend that we actually have a vote. I really wonder about that even, that these things aren't completely fake. The elections are just staged events too, along with everything else. At this point in my life, I don't believe the culture at all. You know, I think it's just been one lying scam from the very beginning. And we're lucky that we were born in the baby boom era because after millions and tens of millions died and the United States became an empire, we were able to enjoy the fruits of some of that. But you know what? People aren't going to have that opportunity going forward. That's over. This country is on a hurricane course to turn the citizens into a third world population here. They're going to turn this country third world probably sooner rather than later. The middle.
Well, by the way, to follow up on the approval of the Southwest Quarter lineman, guess what followed? They approved it, and Trimet said, we're going to try to make sure this time that gentrification doesn't take place along
right.
the line. And so that's released. Guess what followed right after that statement?
What?
A small article that height restrictions along the alignment need to be increased.
Yeah, right. I saw that.
Yeah, which means the developers need to build a bigger.
Yeah. Look, anything that comes out of government shouldn't be trusted anyway. Whatever I really don't understand why people believe. It's like watching Donald Trump, but he's just the example of the rest of government. That's why I've always been shocked at how everybody's shocked at him, because he is basically doing what they've been doing forever. Just lying. But he can't do it properly. You see, when he lies, it's obvious. He can't hide it like the rest of them do. But he's just doing what they all do, and I've always been curious as to why they pound him because he just does what they all do, and anything that comes from a
except he's a little more. He's upfront about it.
Yeah, right. He doesn't even try to hide it. He's like, we're going to do this and that, and he's crazy. He panders to the bigots in the country. That's his base, as they say, and he panders to them. But in his policies, he's the same as any other hardcore Republican. Tax cuts for the rich, get rid of regulations. His little carrot and stick show is the bigotry. But that's again another scam on the. That's just manipulating the masses. It doesn't have any substance in terms of policy. It's just another example.
I sent you a message after our last watching that whole board meeting just to get to the end. I watched the news.
I'd never
okay?
done that before, by the way. Yeah.
I caught the news that night.
Yeah.
All right. My message to you in Messenger was longer than the actual coverage of that board meeting and the importance of what took place.
Yeah.
And the board meeting met, the Trimet board met today to discuss this ordinance, which eventually would be passed. Okay, let's go to the weather.
Yeah. No, the media is not does not cover any of this. There's very.
And then followed by 5 minutes of inane chit chat. And then you say, I wish we had more time to really cover the news.
Yeah. No, the news is not interested in covering the news. You know that. I mean, the mainstream programming is completely worthless on many levels. I don't watch any mainstream shows, news or otherwise, because I know its real purpose is to influence our mind. It's not there to inform us. All of it's there to influence our mind, and it's really become clearer as I've gotten older how much I've been a patsy for all of that. How much I've fallen into their traps of these.
Eating the Pavlov effect to you.
Yeah, right, exactly. And the solution. Here's the problem. Here's the solution. And it's constant. It starts all the way from advertising products, all the way from buy this car versus that car, buy that shampoo. It's every aspect of our life has been influenced by this endless propaganda machine. And you should see this guy here. I mean, he's talking about shit that has no bearing on anybody's life. Okay, and they probably gave it. Yeah, I'm gonna set it up here. Let me turn. Let me. All right, let's get to. I just wanted to chit chat a bit here.
So using devices
Yeah,
like bikeways should be ubiquitous in cities, and cities like Portland are starting to
Is
get
that
there.
a set of Churchill's books up to your right?
Cities also need to really
here?
radically rethink parking.
Up to your
As I
right?
mentioned, parking simply
In my library here.
an urban
It looks like a set of
autonomous
Churchill's
vehicles
books.
Oh, yeah, they are.
themselves.
My dad was.
They'll just go park
I
themselves
got the
someplace
same
else,
set from my dad.
on a
Yeah,
utilized
yeah.
land
Oh,
or
yeah, that's from
in a
my
travel
dad.
lane that's no
That's
longer
funny.
used because it's off.
Can you see that? Okay.
So
A
taking
little bit.
advantage
You
of
gotta cut
all of
off
that free
right-
space that we
right
have
there.
in cities
Is that
and
good?
on our streets that's
All right.
currently set aside for car storage.
All right. I'm gonna get a drink of vodka, so I'll be right back. You make
I'm
it.
drinking a cup of coffee.
I already had my coffee, and I'm gonna
need to get
I'm
in
gonna
the
need to have an
job
actual
of
drink to watch this.
asserting
We're
their
broadcasting live. I don't.
and manage
Nobody's
the
actually
streets
watching,
for services that are operating. in
but
public
it is
The starting
going to
place
be
for that
recorded
is
onto the
requiring
YouTube.
open APIs.
No problem.
Let me
Anyone who
see
wants to
how this
operate
is.
and make a private profit
Let me
on a
look
public
here.
street,
Is it,
you should require open data that
My
allows
videos.
for trip aggregators
Okay.
to help figure out.
oh yeah, it's going to be
users,
recorded
like, how do
automatically
I
to
take
the
an
YouTube
e-scooter
without me having to
to,
transfer it. So
Trimet
you're live. I'll be
train
right back. One
to an
second.
Uber in order to get to where it is that I'm going. So requiring open data to allow for trip aggregators to help us figure out how to get from A to B, and more importantly, give the managers of the street the data that they need to manage the street effectively to ensure that we're upholding the public good. And this means collecting data about demographics. It is important to know who is traveling, not just that there are travelers. And this is something that is antithetical to the Silicon Valley libertarian ethos that all people are the same. All people are the same, but all people do not have the same opportunities. And that is a fundamental job of government, is equalizing opportunity, which means getting really serious about equity. In order to get serious about equity, we need to define exactly what it is that we mean by equity and know how to measure it. In my experience, the way to deal with equity that is most effective is to focus on outcomes. So focus on outcomes like public health or safety outcomes. focus on outcomes like accessibility to employment or education or food, to focus on opportunities specific to demographic groups who are experiencing disadvantage, and to correct for those outcomes. These outcomes are all measurable. We've got great data, and it allows us to remind ourselves that mobility serves no independent utility. Right? What we're really about is creating better economic and social outcomes, but that means we have to have a clear definition of the social outcomes that we seek to achieve. All of this may mean that we need a little bit of reorganization of government, particularly in geographies where there are multiple public transit agencies and mobility providers. You are incredibly fortunate in this region that Metro and Trimet have the same boundary, and there's only one Trimet. I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area. We have 27 different transit agencies. There are 6 in San Francisco alone. So organizing government.
Okay, we're back. Anything interesting happen?
Mobility functions
Oh my
together
God,
towards
this
good
guy
outcomes
is, the screen
We're
before is
particularly
enough
interested in
to,
following the example of the government of Finland, which
there's
moved
enough there to talk for
responsibility
hours
for
on.
mobility into
Yeah.
their Department of
I
Telecommunications.
I mean, he's been talking for an
Their
hour
inspiration
already.
was actually the United States Federal Communications Commission.
It's,
And the FCC
the government good.
has done this
They'll
amazing job over
decide
100
what's
years
good for you
of
and public
recognizing that the
outcome.
airwaves are a
Right.
limited renewable
We
resource,
need more data.
and that
You know,
airwaves need to be carefully managed.
all the
Federal
data
government
that is really
asserted its
needed by the
authority
people who
over
make
the
these
entire
decisions, and I
electromagnetic spectrum
posted
in all of our
online
skies
again,
and said, look,
is that
we're
they
going to
put
use
their
this
car
spectrum
keys
in order to promote
in a
innovation,
locked box,
to promote
which
private
won't
profit,
open
but
for
also
30
to
days.
encourage competitiveness and
And
competition,
then
and
they
to
have to use
support the
public
public good.
transportation
We can do the same thing
to
with
run their
mobility.
lives.
Streets are a limited
Come
renewable
back,
resource.
and they'll start
Government
to make
needs to
decisions
assert
based on
its
that
ownership
experience,
and
you
to
will
allow
see
innovation
a
and private
different
profit on our public streets,
result.
but to also make sure
Yeah, well,
that
that's
there is
never going to
competition
happen.
and
You know
efficiency
that,
in
of
the
course.
public good.
You know, they know better. These are, and this is what I always talk about: is these people aren't going to do,
Start engaging with our
aren't going to do. They think they're better than us.
so that
Okay, that's the
as
problem.
These technologies disrupt things,
I
that people's lives
they
are
need to
not
know who
disrupted.
and what and who's writing. They know all this stuff.
That as conditions change, that we don't.
I mean, all you got to do is get on a train and look around. Who's boarding? What's
Public transit agencies can't just wait passively.
It's just.
Public technology providers.
Oh, yes.
And you need to lead because you are the holders of the public good.
No.
It is important
You are.
that there be
Oh
an
my
entity
God!
that
You
has
know,
the
if you
public good in
take
mind, that is
that
working
one
to
woman's
manage the entire
board
system.
member
It
who
doesn't
was
mean that you need to
lecturing
operate the
the
entire system. You
other
don't
board
need to be
member
the
for her
provider
vote.
for every function.
Yeah,
You
just
have to be the
just trust
coordinator,
her
and you need
to
to make sure
make
that
the
you're
decisions
operating
on
the
your
system,
life.
Yeah, right.
that the private
You're here
sector
for
is
the
never
public
going to
good.
step in.
Yeah, right.
And
Sure
gonna
you
do
are.
this because, well, first and most
Yeah,
importantly,
and
you
as
are
long
so
as
much
we
more
can
space
keep
efficient
getting
than
into your
anything that the
wallet.
private sector is thinking
Yeah,
about.
we're here for
And if
you.
you're not there, the
We'll
economy
be
of
doing
this
the
region
good.
will die.
Exactly.
Because the streets will move fewer and fewer people, even as this region is trying to grow.
I wonder how much they paid
Also,
him to
if you're
present
not
this.
there, social equity is not going to be upheld. You need to play that role of managing the system to create maximum opportunity, particularly for people who will otherwise be left behind. And this means starting now to partner with ODOT and the municipalities.
So he's here
that
to
dedicated
present
right
some
of
more. Okay, I
in the
see what he's doing.
corridors where you can
He's
be
here to
most
present.
Yeah,
successful, and
this
there
is part of
there
the
is a
foundation
demand
of the
for
2025.
high capacity transit. Particularly where
Yeah,
there's a
yeah,
demand
yeah,
for
exactly.
high
That's what I was.
capacity
Yes,
autonomous
he's
transit.
here to
The best,
present
fastest
evidence to get more of your tax dollars using his presentation here.
Freight.
Right, that's
Yeah,
right. That's
and-
exactly what.
And he's got more
And
than
one of the
3
advantages in
minutes
public transit
versus
is that
the 3
if you can
young
quickly
people
get to autonomy,
who were cut
you
off
can
by-
dramatically increase your frequency
by the
at
board of
almost zero
directors.
marginal
Yeah,
cost.
no,
So
he's
imagine a
been
corridor
talking
like
for a half
Powell
hour
and
now, I
Barbara,
think, with this.
Oh
where you're
my God.
operating
Yeah, because he
every
was
2
talking
minutes,
before we even
24 hours
hooked
a
up,
day,
and he's still talking.
because the marginal cost is about energy.
And,
This doesn't mean that even if you're not having operators, that you're not staffing these vehicles. Why not have
He's
the
just
bus
talking.
staff like
He's able to just
first
talk
class
talk.
on an airline? Could you imagine this region where public transit was not a mode, for young urbanites and for people who had no other choice,
Yeah.
but the mode of first choice because it was the highest quality and the most space efficient. And that we were using personal autonomous vehicles as the means to get to the high quality, high efficiency system running on the main corridors. This means that you've got to manage Uber and Lyft to make sure that you're taking advantage of their incredibly positive aspects, particularly the way that Uber and Lyft are great at getting people to high quality transit, but not letting Uber and Lyft crowd up your bus stops or compete with you in a way that is more costly and less space efficient.
Let's get this.
This means looking at all of your real estate holdings and starting to turn them into mobility hubs. We're starting to do this already, bringing together the e-scooters and e-bikes, bringing together Amazon lockers, bringing together basic services like daycare or small grocery stores, so that the needs of daily life and a full array of mobility services are brought together in one place. This is a role that only a public agency like you can play.
Oh, yeah.
But finally, what it means is thinking about making the transition from being an operator of buses and trains to being the regional mobility manager for the
Oh boy.
region. This is a role
He wants Trimet. I mean, I thought Trimet was already owning the world, but he wants.
And it's a role that
He really has grandiose visions, doesn't he?
only on your terms.
Yeah.
This is a role that
Yeah,
you
right.
manage the
We
mobility
want to
system
be the mobility manager for
that
the
says
world.
you are all welcome,
Oh
but
my God.
only if you're upholding
You
the
know,
public
studies
good
have been
while
done,
you're operating
not
on
by
the
Trimet,
private right of way.
Years ago,
This means
that,
using your power
when the max line
your
went
regulatory
out to
power
Gresham,
and your
Uh-huh.
land ownership
and
power and your
years
ownership of the rail
afterwards,
system
and all these
to
apartments,
force all of those
that were
private
built
providers
along the
to
max
play
line,
well together.
Uh-huh.
So in Finland, you don't get to actually operate.
independent studies started to track vehicles and people who lived there, and then went to interview them. That the max stop, the max ran right in front of their apartments.
Yeah.
They almost, I forgot, it was like 80% of the people
But finally,
or more did not use it.
Oh, really? 80% did not use it.
Did not use it.
Really?
Because
Your job is not
they couldn't get there within any efficient amount of time.
And it doesn't take you to where you need to go either, unless you're going to a destination right on the line.
Right.
It doesn't help you, you know. If you've got to be going to somewhere that's right on that destination, or else, what good is the rail line if you can't take it to where you need to go? You know.
Tell better stories. You know, we need to take. You know, we need to substitute the word stories.
Yeah.
We tell better lies.
Yeah. I mean, this is quite a little production he's got here. Yeah, no, he's got the grandiose. He's got the super grandiose. I mean, Trimet already has grandiose plans, but this guy is taking it to the next level. You know, you can see where he's going with this. Yeah.
This is to make sure that this is to indoctrinate the board members to justify everything.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's talking to the board, and the board only has contact with the executive staff. My little system here is quite advanced. I'm trying to get more advanced. All right. Let's see here.
So I can answer the where do you start question, and that's actually the conversation that's following this one. Start with mission, vision, and values.
Start with mission, vision.
That are really clear.
Mission, vision.
Yeah, value, mission, vision, and values.
That's a great phrase.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Why am I not getting the proper
One thing that we know
alignment
that
here?
public
This
transit
camera's
agencies
not.
do and get better at is making faster, smarter decisions and having the capacity for making some mistakes. So being able to take the right risks and to understand how to fail.
Not very good with this camera.
Yeah. Never fail.
A really deep.
It is the only agency I probably know that they have never been
being able to say no. Like, we've got limited resources, both financial and staff.
And if
So
something,
we can't
quote,
be
fails,
distracted by
there's
everything
always a
that we
manager
do.
whose
So
head is available for a guillotine.
fast decisions. Yes, that works, let's do that. Or that is interesting, but only if you do X, Y, and Z. Being able
Yeah,
to operate as
how
quickly
about
as
when,
business,
how
will
much
become
money went
really
down the
important.
tube?
Oh,
It
hundreds of
Requires
millions,
a
and it's
laser
still going down the
focus
tube.
on what
And
your
that's one of the reasons they want the rail, by the way, is because you can't get rid of it if it does fail. You keep it going anyway.
Right, if you make a
concept
mistake,
of open APIs,
if you
clearly
make
that
a
seems
wrong
to me like a
mistake
very
on a bus
tangible,
route, guess what you can
action
do?
Yeah, you can move the bus, but
You
is
move
not in
the
conflict
bus.
with who we are
Exactly.
today, and is
I mean,
something
this
that
Southwest Corridor project
is
is
a pre-positioning effort that gets
$3.2
paves
billion.
the way for
Yeah.
all the transportation metaphors for
How many buses can
being
you
in the
buy
position
for $3.2
you're
billion?
proposing today. Are there precedents
Let's
out
see.
there
Dedicated
for
lanes,
open
do
API
the whole thing,
platforms
new
within
fleet,
public
everything, and you
transportation
probably have a
infrastructure?
bunch of money left over in your pocket.
Yeah, so I mean, there's the place that has gone the furthest is Finland,
Finland.
which has done this through its national legislation. Challenge here in the United States is none of the providers want open APIs, and some of them have good reasons for that.
What?
However, I don't think any of this works without them. I mean, obviously, public transit agencies have long experience with open APIs, just with GTFS. You know, the fact that I can go on, Google or any transit aggregator in my phone and see both schedule and real-time information.
So public agencies
Can you still see that?
starting to do this,
Yeah.
not like
Okay.
the payments. And Trimet is trying to do this with its hop card, at least being a platform for receiving open API data, if they can get it. So this is a huge challenge
Looks like
in the
you
United
figured out some
States,
way to
and
broadcast this.
will likely require collaboration with state governments, because local jurisdictions and regions likely don't have the authority to do so. Particularly in states like California, where the state has asserted its ability to have blanket regulation statewide. That said, you have negotiating ability, access to resources
Okay, we're trying to
that
get this
providers
stable here.
want. So, for example,
We're not having much luck. There we go.
as you're developing mobility hubs here at Trimet, a price of entry may be open
I don't
APIs.
know why that's zooming like that.
Are you inferring that could be a workaround to national or state level leadership in that direction?
It could be, and it's the sort of thing that I would encourage you to be talking to the municipalities and to Metro about. Government agencies have a lot more power when they collaborate. And I think an ODOT,
We need
Trimet,
to change the
Metro,
word
and
to
municipality partnership, where you have
To collude.
clarity about exactly
Collude,
what
yeah,
you
collude.
achieve,
Fire.
Yeah.
would go a long way to convincing the providers to play along well.
I mean, most of the people in Tiger did not want the max
I'm really
to
intrigued
come
on this
out
concept
anywhere
of
near there.
Right.
ensuring the
Well,
public good and the
The
social
public good.
outcomes element.
See how they
and I
all
go
of
back
their
to the concept of
keywords,
precedent,
their
because
language.
although I think the idea
It's
is
all,
square in the core of the values.
It's
of
all a
Trimet,
propaganda-based system here.
I
It
fail to
is like,
conceive
trust us, we know what's good
what
for
it
you.
looks like
Yeah.
on paper
Oh, I
and,
see
and
what I
what
can do here. I
what
can
form it's
zoom this.
taken.
I see what
and
happened. I zoomed it
if
by
there are no
accident.
actual implemented precedents, is there any thought on paper around what it looks like to ensure social outcomes in this sort of scenario?
Well, I think there's a very interesting example just from this week with the city of Portland and e-scooters. So, Portland is struggling. I mean, all the municipalities are struggling with this topic, and they said,
No live
okay,
chat
e-scooters,
on
you're
these. You
welcome to
notice
come,
how
but you can't
Trimet
just be
has
in
turned
Northwest.
off the live
Like,
chat
you've
for
gotta
their
be in
live
East
broadcast.
Portland.
I don't know. Do I have live chat on mine?
And
Nobody's watching. I got
so
one person
the
watching.
city of Portland struck a deal, and there was
One
some
person's
doubt
watching
about whether the city would follow through. And
there's a
indeed,
live
they
chat, so
follow
let me
through
chat.
to, are they
Yada, yada.
finding, yeah, so they're finding one of the providers because their requirement for open data allowed the city of Portland to actually quantify whether the providers were actually providing service in East Portland. Like they had the information and they had a contract mechanism that had an enforcement provision in it. So this is a very simple example, but a local and important one where government agencies are asserting their authority to drive more equitable outcomes and actually following through on their management commitments. Of course, you can take that much in a much broader way.
Yeah, the scooter
or
people
just
made
barely
one big
chipping away
mistake.
at, the opportunity.
All three.
What?
You see, Uber and Lyft were they had enough cash to
Jeffrey, thank you
bribe
for the
the people they
presentation.
needed
A lot of great information.
Yeah.
to get the foothold. And once they got the foothold, and even though they were exposed that they were doing stuff that they weren't supposed to be doing, redlighting, providing false data, and also providing lots of money for political campaigns. The scooter people didn't have that kind of savvy
Yeah.
or
Right,
expertise
right.
to do it.
True.
So if you didn't pay me, I ain't giving it to you.
Yeah.
Something that represents
Here's
what
Mr.
you're
Pontificator.
representing, because we've got a lot of things going on there that will require some significant leadership. And then while you're kind of referencing that, I
No,
have
that's
another
for sure.
question that you can also reference at the same time. When we talk about transportation now, almost in a two-dimensional standpoint, but what about the three-dimension? I mean, what about, you did mention Wakanda, so I'll mention the Jetsons. And this whole concept of, I'm a pilot, I'm a private pilot, so about, not even using the road infrastructure at some point, and I know the guys at Google are also making autonomous, self-flying digital vehicles. So there's a whole other space there that probably will give us a huge advertising screen and try to sell me like flying boots or something.
Yeah, I still want my personal jetpack. Personally.
Yeah.
So let me take your last question first, and then I'll go back to the first one. So autonomous aviation is really interesting, but just like ground-based autonomous travel, it has advantages and disadvantages, and use cases that create net benefit, and use cases that create net harm. So the challenge is figuring out how to steer that industry to capture its best value and minimize the potential harm.
Yeah, it's
So the aviation space is great.
who is
but,
this guy again? Let me look
again,
at the
it's not going to
Trimet.
solve the congestion problem. It just
They
creates
flashed at the end of his
Just like the
presentation, it said who
really
he
easy
was.
to do a
I
tunnel
think I can
underground.
look it up
The
on
challenge
there.
is what happens
On the agenda here.
Right. That's where
And
the
I would love to know how much Trimet paid
And
for this.
just
Yeah,
because
I'm
you've got
sure
a tunnel to get from here to
Several
there,
$100,000.
Transfers your
That would be,
congestion
if they took
problem
any
from
testimony,
length to
that might be
distance.
the first question.
The same can
Whoever
occur
gets
with
their 3 minutes of
So
fame.
don't look at aviation.
They didn't
as
take
a percentage
testimony,
of
they
cost
said
of
right on
benefit.
there, no
Yeah, this
testimony.
is
Look
like
at
the
it as an
equity
opportunity to
hearing.
solve particular challenges. Also remember
Okay, here's the
that
agenda. So
aviation is
this guy, let's see here.
um,
The future
there's
of
that
mobility with Jeffrey
and aviation,
Tumlin,
particularly
Principal
small-scale
and Director of
aviation,
Strategy, Nelson
comes with
Nygaard.
noise and
So,
if
Nelson
you think,
Nygaard
drones
is,
flying around the city are annoying. Imagine, giant
whoever the hell he is.
sized
That's
things
an
with
organization
blades,
or something.
right? So
Next
they can
stop after
quickly
this,
get
they're
really
gonna, we
discouraged,
missed the whole fucking,
and be an opportunity for the
Wait a
very
minute.
wealthy
That's
to be
just
able
terrible.
to bypass the mess that we've left.
You know,
We'll go back and watch
I
it
don't know
later.
whether
Now,
you've
that
seen
said,
the video
or
or
things
the
like
posting
crossing
online.
a body of water
Oh.
where bridges are really expensive.
The
where
animation
you're
of
not flying
showing
over any people or folks' backyards.
buses
Crossing like in
or
San
a
Francisco
vehicle
Bay,
that carries
where you could have
people,
on a
and
ferry tunnel,
it's above,
but using
it
the air
runs,
instead of the water in order to get from here
it
to there,
runs
and then
above the
transferring to a
freeway,
scooter in the
you
other
know,
end.
with
These are
cars.
use cases that
Yeah.
start getting really interesting.
I
and
mean,
that they have
an
high
ingenious
potential
idea.
value, and low potential.
You're talking about the one that was elevated, it's in a track, but it's going above?
It's not elevated on track, it actually has elevation, it has like, it looks like a Star Wars vehicle that has four wheels, pillars coming down with wheels, and it rides above the cars. So cars have to be in a designated lane, so this thing can get run on the freeway.
Thinking about
I'll see if I can
autonomous
find it again.
aviation as a replacement for ambulances, then creates this really, really positive net benefit. So yeah, but again, like back to your first question, what should we be doing now?
See, this guy's
You
so
should be doing a
fluffy
lot.
nothing here. It's
So
fluff.
starting with clarifying your values so that you can make decisions.
Clarify your values.
Yeah, what the fuck is that supposed to mean? God, how many times have they clarified their values? It's just like this goddamn pork machine has to keep revisiting stuff they've already done to keep their pork, you know?
Inextricably linked.
I mean, they keep
with
doing the same things over and over and over because they're a tax-funded organization and they have to look like they're doing something.
It says port connection video will resume automatically when connection improves.
And to be starting
Well,
to
that's on your end.
your own
That's on my end.
You want me to reconnect it? I can do that.
Really matter, and committing to providing an extraordinarily high level of service so that you can compete on
How's that,
time
better?
and convenience and
Connection's
quality.
okay.
As people
I mean,
continue
this whole thing is just him droning on in superlatives.
Yes, apparently that's exactly what it is.
longer answer is
Well, you hit it right when you said it originally. He's here to lay out what their 2020 bond measure is going to
So
be,
if I
right?
were to quote you, I think you said there needs to
Right.
be some autonomous aviation between Camas and
So-
Fruitvale.
So all these
I think that
people
was
like they're
specifically
not,
what he said. I'm not mistaken. One last question in that regard, and it falls into what you kind of finish up there, and I think it's going to be kind of evident. But you know, as an agency, sometimes I'll sit and say, I think we need to be a little bit more engaged in land use. In that
A little bit
discussion,
more?
because ultimately
God, that's
you
what they do.
referenced
That's their
it, you
primary
mentioned,
deal.
That's
some of
the-
the
that's the
development
primary motive here.
surrounds.
Yeah, I know. What do you mean you need to be more engaged? That's the entire light rail agenda. It's not for mobility. It's for land use.
Where I live, there's
It's for
there's not
capitalization.
Yeah,
not a max, it's a
right.
good place to get to the grocery store. And
Also it's for the
there's a
pork
new,
that comes in when you
new
build it.
building that's gonna go up to
But I mean, the land
and,
development
not
is
just a
what it's
grocery
really
store
about.
there,
That's
because then
also
you could
called
actually
Agenda
access public
21.
transit, right next to a place where folks now can get to a grocery store very quickly, rather than having to travel all the way down to Gateway and go to Fred Meyer. Not that it's a bad thing, but the distances. But I mean, is that something that I was inferring that from your conversation, similar to the Troutdale Camas component, but
yeah, mobility is the land use business. It's
there-
ridiculous
he
that we
just said it.
separated these functions in the United States since they're the same function. And
No,
it's useful
mobility is to get people where
look
they need to
the
go.
CBC
That's what
as
public
an example of the
transportation
way
used to
they
be
have
until the
leveraged
neoliberals
transportation
took
property
control.
in order to
It wasn't
provide
about
the
making
services
developments.
um,
It was
immediately
important to get
adjacent
people where they
transit.
needed to
The
go.
number of
It was,
supermarkets
and,
that are
if you look
right
across the
in
United
the
States in the
station
history
itself,
of
in that
trolleys
region,
and
makes
streetcars,
it so
it
convenient.
did a
You
really
don't
great
ever have to
job.
think, right?
Right.
And you can actually go to the supermarket.
Rider,
every
And
single
I
day
mean, the
and
empirical,
actually get fresh
let me
food
just make
and
this one
with
point.
just the
The
things that you
empirical
need,
fact
because
that
it's
proves
never
all this
possible.
bullshit
You
is
have to
the
walk
light
through the
rail
grocery store to get home
bonanza
anyway.
that's been going on for the last 20 years. Public transportation ridership has crashed as a result.
With the need
Okay,
of your
ridership is
customers,
down.
right? So
Billions have been
thinking of the
spent
customer
and
first,
ridership
not
is
just
down.
about mobility in the
It's been a
abstract,
failure when it comes to public
really critical
transportation
to
goals.
the
It's
future
been a
success of this
huge
agency
success
and
when
this
it comes to property development goals. Oh, yeah, look at him.
There's comments to add on.
I don't know.
well, it's been also a tremendous success for a bunch of people who get some nice paying jobs.
Yeah, right. The planners, the managers, the construction contractors, the engineers. Man, the engineers have employment for
And a guy
life.
like this.
the rail system at the station. They walk
It is.
ducking over because they each have their iPhones, and they're ducking over buying lettuce, tomato, carrots, everything else, all their SKUs and they hit send, and it would be delivered to where either the trunk of their car, if they were in a parking lot, which is rare in Singapore for other reasons, or to FOB, wherever they wanted to deliver. And so they literally, it became a convergence of traveling was not just isolated. It was a convergence, like your phone and schedule and calendar. It all came together to be part of a spectrum of your life. And so as an example, one of the most recent ones I have seen, where you literally get off, you've done what your journey.
Boy, they sure have grandiose plans, don't they?
And all part of the seamless part of livability and mobility converging at that intersection. For those who can do it, the examples that Jeffrey outlined, where literally you come off an escalator and there's a Safeway store right there, or Fred Meyer's or whatever. And you don't have to have, you want to minimize the air gaps of your life and you converge them together as much as possible.
Scan your
Those who do
stuff
win.
that you put into your
I got a question about autonomous vehicles and trying to understand
and when you
the
go to the checkout
unintended
stand, all they
consequences
got, they
of
don't
the way
have to
that
do anything.
I think you know,
You don't have
the
to run it
geometry,
through again.
geometry
It's
lesson that you
Oh.
have to present vehicles and so on.
Which
It's
essentially
enlightening. I'm just
is
trying to
like
figure
self-
out,
it's like
maybe you can
the
enlighten
next
me, where
step
you think the
beyond
future of
self-checkout.
autonomous vehicles is
Oh, I
going.
see. I wonder what those
If you
things
read
were
some
that
of the
they had at
literature
the.
and some of the things
Yeah,
that are
and
going on,
so
it
essentially
appears that
is
if you
to
really get to a
eliminate
totally
jobs
autonomous
and,
vehicle, it's going to be quite
Right.
expensive.
And
And
healthcare
it's going to
and
be something that I think the
everything
model of
Right.
the automobile industry is
I
looking
mean,
at.
the only
is
thing you gotta do
essentially
is
lease
buy the
this-
device and
this
apply the
automobile or a
electricity.
share of that automobile
Yeah, sounds wonderful,
to
doesn't
use,
it?
to use, which says to me you're going to actually, if that's the model that's used in the future, you're going to start attract, in order to make them pay off, you're going to have them build more up with, with people, which will help somewhat in that. And then the other piece of it is,
You know, the thing that always strikes me about these meetings is how they never, ever actually talk about transit services on the ground. They never talk about the service that's going on today. Never. It's a very brief report, but they never actually get into any details about it. There's all.
You sort of hit what exactly what I was thinking at almost the exact same time. They are talking to themselves.
Yes, yes, exactly.
You know, it's an affirmation of, aren't we wonderful?
Yes, yes. You know,
And
you think they would spend time talking about all the things that happened on the transit center in the month, all the different breakdowns, all the different assaults, all the different service disruptions, all of that stuff should be put into this board meeting in a comprehensive manner, but it's not there at all. It's not there at all. All the riders' complaints, all the riders' compliments. There's nothing. It's nothing. There's no discussion about the system.
there's no discussion about, quote, transportation.
Right. It's all about this kind of nonsense.
It's all about equity of
Yeah, bullshit things like equity or female managers' pay or light rail to Tiger, which is not completely unneeded. You know, there's no actual discussion about the actual transit system on the ground. There's no report of what happened last month. Let's talk about every single MAX disruption. Let's talk about every single bus disruption. Let's, the things that are actually important to the people, they don't even bring it up. And this is a great example of how the Trimet board is absolutely of no relevance to anybody but themselves. Because what they're talking about here has no meaning to any of us. This is all some kind of a pie in the sky idea that they're going to have this giant transit agency and they're going to coordinate everything. It's insulting. I mean, that's why I stopped watching these, because it's insulting to me to watch this, because it's so disconnected from reality of what people need. And yet here it is in our face. You can see it live, You can see these people are completely disconnected from you. As you just said, they're talking to themselves.
me, but that's a whole other story. So, in rural areas,
See, look at it.
you get less.
And he's been going on for like an hour now.
Trips are longer, densities are lower, and so the cost equation gets tipped longer in favor of individual ownership. Plus, there are also going to continue to be lots of people whose livelihood is attached to their car. So if you're a carpenter or if you're working as a farmer,
Oh, there's
you know,
somebody
there's,
chatting.
there's
Somebody
a
actually
certain
chatted on YouTube
utility
today.
in having one vehicle where you've got your stuff, and that will endure for a while. There will also be people, just like there are people who own, you know, boats and horses today. There will always be people that have weird emotional attachments to motor vehicles that will continue to own them as hobby products.
Weird. Yes, weird.
And then the suburbs are kind of in between, and in many respects it depends upon the direction that suburbs take. So there are some suburbs that will remain attached to individual automobile ownership as for political and symbolic reasons, because of this association that so many Americans have between individual
Top
car
cat,
ownership
zero.
and personal liberty.
Where is he from?
This will endure for a
Nelson
long
and
time,
Nygaard.
and more so in some communities than others. Other suburban communities will reorient around
serious.
public health
Oh my
and
God.
lifestyle. So one thing that we're starting to see in some suburban communities, in order to maintain their economic relevance and be attractive to young people, is taking advantage of their overly wide streets to reallocate that right-of-way for dedicated bikeways and scooter lanes and so on. So like Santa Monica is like, you know, just sort of going whole hog in favor of micromobility and human health-focused mobility as part of their economic development strategy. So what I'm hopeful to see actually is interesting market differentiation. Now I will argue
Market
that
differentiation,
for economic
Neil.
relevancy, if you're not focusing on attracting and retaining talented young people, you're setting your community up for an economic disaster. So,
You're setting
and for those of us who are of an older generation with a different viewpoint, the best way to maintain our auto-oriented
It's actually,
lifestyle
somebody's
is to
actually
get
watching
everyone
this.
else to do something that's more efficient.
And ask questions.
So this is a very interesting set of challenges that our cities will be facing over the next decade. And really, it's that time frame. Like this is happening very rapidly. Cities like to, you know, they operate on sort of 40-year cycles. We're switching now, you know, to 5 to 10-year cycles.
What?
In the vein of,
I have this up for a
oh,
while.
I'm
Oh,
sorry.
come on, yeah, let's hear
I
her.
didn't see that.
It's
Pardon me,
okay, I was
Director
waiting for
White.
you, and then I wanted to chime in, so,
Yep.
but you're next, Ozzy.
Alright.
So I wanted to just, you know, I
Where's-
think about transit
where's our
as
hero?
a piece of a neighborhood,
Yep.
right, of a community.
Yep.
And in Oregon and the Portland metro area, I think we are lucky to have neighborhoods that have certain, you know, different characteristics and, you know, I remember the street that I grew up on, right? And like the grocery stores that I was able to walk to or, you know, enjoy with my family. And unfortunately, some of those places don't exist anymore because of displacement, because of gentrification. And I think in certain communities, especially low income communities of color, transit is like bad. Like you see the, you know, the railway come in and it's like, oh, that's the first sign, right? That like other people are gonna move into our, you know, my neighborhood with higher income or, you know, whatever. So I guess how do you, I don't know if balance is the right word, but how do you consider those factors that, you know, adding a new line adds to, you know, the neighborhood composition, and then how do you work with those communities in that neighborhood to also get their ownership and get their,
Yeah, we get
I'm
their
all
ownership
going
by
to-
kicking them out.
Yeah, exactly.
So, gentrification and displacement are a lot about scarcity. So, there has been a market shift in the kind of neighborhoods that that a broader array of people want.
Gentrification is a advanced method of ethnic cleansing, by the way. It's the same thing. You're moving out one population in favor of another population. You're not killing them. You're just pushing them out of there.
Rich people get first dibs, and poor people go someplace else.
That's right. Okay.
So the underlying problem actually is that there's just not enough of walkable, friendly, neighborhoody places where you don't have to drive everywhere. And suddenly, people of affluence want that. And they're pushing poor people out. So a first place to
You're right
start is
about
making
that.
sure that it's legal, which it's not in most of this region, to build the very thing that an increasing share of the market wants. Too much of the region is designed for a lifestyle, the market for
Oh,
which
here it
is
is.
shrinking.
Here it is.
So-
You found it.
Start there.
Um,
The second thing is there's a stronger relationship between rail investment and gentrification and
Yeah.
displacement than there is with bus investment.
that's right.
Because we still have this social stigma associated with the bus. One of the advantages
That's
with
a true thing.
autonomy
That's not lie.
is that you can have a bus corridor, it's an autonomous bus, that offers the same service quality, but may not have the same displacement effect. So really focusing on your bus system becomes an opportunity to provide mobility without necessarily, triggering the displacement and over-investment
But
dial.
there's not enough
Look,
money there.
Yeah, right. He's, the buses don't make, the light rail mafia can't make money on buses,
Right.
It's all about, by the way, our friend Dora, who is watching this, I guess, she sent me the information about Tumlin. His name is Jeffrey Tumlin. He's an expert in helping communities move from discord to agreement about the future. For more than 20 years, Jeff has led award-winning plans in cities from Seattle, Vancouver to Moscow, Abu Dhabi. He helps balance all modes of transportation. Oh, they paid this guy a lot of money. Jeff is
Yeah.
renowned for helping people. Look at this. I got a call from Malaysia here. Can you believe that? Who the hell? Who would be calling me from Malaysia? I'm not taking a call. Yeah, so he's making some money.
Poverty, because we're denying them to access opportunities. This is one of the reasons why, as you start thinking about mission, vision, and values and how to measure that, to think beyond function to the actual social good that you're serving. To look not just about the number of people that you're moving, but what's the amount of time that people have to take in order to get to quality employment or to community college. Right?
Yeah,
You can measure it.
exactly what I've been
And you can
pushing.
adjust your service accordingly.
Put all your
And
car
you can
keys in
also
the drawer,
use
lock
your
'em
bully
up,
pulpit
and go
role
right
with
to your
metro and
system that you're
municipalities
overseeing.
to change
Yeah.
land use in order to help you deliver on your social opportunity mission. Because you only have
I
control
bet you
over
if you
certain
add
pieces.
up all
But
the
together
hours
with the
of
land
the
use
board
authority, you
members
can do a lot.
that rode
But
public
only if you're
transportation
clear and
in
committed.
the month,
Thank
that
you.
you
Thanks
wouldn't
for
get
saying
to
that. And I know
20
that
hours.
Yeah, no, I'm sure you're
Metro
right.
and some of our partner city of Portland, and they also are developing and sharing a broader equity lens around how does transit, how does housing, how do all of these things affect.
Yeah, they
communities
sure
that
talk
are
a lot about
disadvantaged,
equity. Too
and
bad
how
there's
do
no
we
equity.
Empower all of us to
That's right.
to gain what we need in terms of resources and access. So thank you for mentioning that, and I think that's
Come
something
on, I
that
want you to be an
we can
anarchist here,
definitely talk about.
Kathy. Do
Good.
go get him. I want some drama here.
You said something
Somebody has
really
to say,
interesting in the presentation.
Take him on a little
in the
bit.
spirit of potential economic disaster, that despite here, specifically in the Portland region, despite our growth of development, that the potential prosperity of the region could be limited and in fact stymied by congestion. And I believe doesn't require much stretch of the imagination for a Portlander today to recognize how much that's already a palpable element of their daily life. Do you have is there any rigor behind such a thing that you're aware of to establish the extent to which economic activity is already being impacted by congestion in this region?
Yes. So there's a couple of studies that I would urge you to look at. One is Bruce Schaller's data, Schaller. Bruce collected a lot of data in New York. New York is the one place in the country that has used their authority to get good data from Uber and Lyft. And Bruce ran the numbers, and the numbers are actually complex. Overall, they're quite damning in the way that Uber and Lyft are massively increasing congestion, particularly in Manhattan. And as a result, the mobility system in Manhattan is moving fewer and fewer people over time, which will have a big impact on the New York economy. That said, Bruce also finds use cases where Uber and Lyft are having a net congestion benefit, particularly when Uber Pool and Lyft Line are used to access transit. So it's important to not just look at the headlines, but look deep in that data to say, oh yeah,
Oh, yeah.
if we manage
Like his,
this,
like his
we
program
can
really.
get benefit and minimize harm.
Yeah, somebody's actually
Um,
watching this.
In addition to that, there's data
on
for the
this,
San Francisco County Transportation Authority. Northwestern University did a very clever thing to, in a backward way, infer Uber and Lyft data, since Uber and Lyft would not give up their data. And that was able to demonstrate it's not exactly clear, but we know that in San Francisco, Uber and Lyft are having a significant impact on congestion, and as a result, San Francisco streets are moving fewer people because of the way that the system is managed. So it's a reason why getting access to the data is so critically important, so we can take advantage of the upside of these technologies.
Yeah, they always seem to forget. You know, they like to blame Uber and Lyft for all these problems, but they seem to forget that the reason Uber and Lyft exist at all is because of the failure of public transportation. Or they wouldn't even exist at all. So of course they're increasing congestion. That's what happens, you know. I mean, for crying out loud, man. If you had done your job properly, they wouldn't be there.
Look per unit of time in public rights of way to actual economic impacts.
Well, there's plenty of examples, and that's sort of what, you know, my industry has done for 50 years, is looked at that relationship between congestion and economic performance. This is not to say that eliminating congestion
This guy just goes on
improves the economy. Detroit is the great counterexample. It's the only city in the United States that solved its congestion problem. It did so by destroying its regional economy.
What?
So a certain amount of congestion is fine.
He said
But when the congestion
New York
reaches the
solved its congestion problem by destroying its economy. I don't know what he's talking about there, do you?
That's Detroit.
No, did he say Detroit or New York? I thought he said New York.
He said Detroit.
Oh, okay. Well, Detroit, we know why Detroit died. It had nothing to do with transit.
Yeah, well, they're killing off potential writers at a great clip every weekend.
long list. Because it's clear that the lack of a housing strategy in the Bay Area combined with the lack of a mobility strategy are putting a big damper on the overall Bay Area economy.
Thank you. I want to underscore how important I think looking at how congestion is impacting our local region currently is going to be an important element in being able to have productive conversations about the impact of right-of-way and perhaps bring some of our stakeholders to the table.
Yep. And I would argue that it's not measuring congestion, but rather measuring person throughput. That's the most important indicator. It's about how many people are moving.
Person throughput?
Delay is not as important as accessibility, which is really how many jobs can I get to in 20 minutes? Like, it doesn't matter if I'm going 15 miles an hour or 50 miles an hour. If I can get to 10,000 jobs in 20 minutes, I'm doing well. Similarly, it doesn't matter if there's severe congestion or no congestion. The question is, how many people can the system move in order to drive the economy? Which is why, again, I think the conversation that follows about getting greater clarity about what your role is and figuring out exactly
how many people can you move?
Well, it seems that we're already feeling the impact of congestion on day-to-day business. It takes longer to get to jobs that we already have, and the way the land use is divided in our region.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons why Trimet ridership is flat, and one of the reasons it never gets discussed is because they're maxed out. They don't have the equipment. They don't have sufficient equipment to really move any more people. You know, they really don't. Okay, the trains and buses.
Right. I mean, the day they built the MAX line, they maxed out because they, as Click and Class used to say, the stingy man pays the most.
Yes, right.
And we didn't want to pay for a subway, and so here we are, 35, 40 years later, and you're wondering why trains are moving at 3 or 4 miles an hour through downtown.
It's so pathetic. It really is pathetic how slow that system is.
And at most, you can only put 2 cars together because the blocks are only that long.
Yeah, it was really poorly conceived. The entire MAX system was poorly conceived.
It was. and, and they continue to do it.
Yeah, I know.
I am really curious of where the fare evasion problem is as rampant as it is that are they going to take a new, innovative approach when they build the Southwest Quarter line? Because you and I, my no vote is not going to be enough to stop it.
Yeah.
Whether they're going to build platforms that are closed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the answer to that is no. We're just going to keep doing what we're doing.
Well, there's a nefarious side to the whole fair enforcement that they don't talk about, and it's the same thing with the war on drugs. It's a population control measure. Okay, these things are never discussed publicly, but they're conceived privately at the highest levels, and it's a way for the police state to dragnet for unquote undesirables. Now, in the war on drugs, we know for sure, because we have the Nixon tapes to prove it, that whole war on drugs was created to try to snuff out the dissident movement and to put the black population into jail. That was intentional. We know that's true. We've heard it ourselves. And this whole fare evasion thing, all this uproar over a $2.50 fare is really nothing but a population control. It's a war on citizens, and that's what it really is. They never talk about it. The media never covers it, but that's the truth of the system, okay? And I've been a supporter of fare free. They'll never have fare free because that's not the intent. The intent is population control of the masses.
Well, and there's that lady there who just came up.
Yeah, she's, oh God,
so,
yeah.
We are legally entitled.
Yeah, right. Exactly, yeah. Yeah, we are legally, everything we're doing is legal. That's the kind of, that's the elitists talking about how they're going to do everything to us out here. I mean, we can see it for our own eyes. We're watching to see how these people have nothing to do with reality. They're talking to themselves. It has nothing to do with anything that any citizen gives one shit about, but yet they've spent over an hour and a half on this shit. It means nothing to anybody. It doesn't even mean anything to them. It's just some feel-good presentation about the future, you know. This is how they fill up their meeting, I guess. You know, it shocks me that this is the kind of shit that they do.
Disappointing. That's provocative and
By the way, they can do this, but they can't film. Doug the desk there going to an outreach and showing you what the results of that, you know.
Yeah, but they don't want it. They didn't even want to film this, and the only reason they did film it is because, you know, believe it or not, me and my buddy Jason McHuff were filming these board meetings and bringing them public, and we did it for over a year. I don't, maybe a year and a half, 2 years. We were doing it ourselves, and then the big uproar over McFarland stealing that money.
Oh my God, we missed the thank yous.
Oh yeah, well I think they're having a break now. They're taking a break, and
yeah, I really don't think we need to spend much more time, because all it's going to be is a reaffirmation of what everyone, quote, there's nothing